Anybody who wants to read question 3?
I can read.
All right.
Shortly after coming to New York City and experiencing the events of 9/11, Coates felt indifferent for the people of this horrific event. I could see no difference between the officers who killed Prince Jones and the police who died, or the firefighters who died. They were not human to me, black, white, whatever they were, the menaces of nature, which could, with no justification, shatter my body. Although we have been the second-class citizens of America, have we been brainwashed to believe that in times of war that we should somehow care about the affairs of our masters in the name of patriotism? It is really wrong of, is it really wrong of black Americans to not shed a tear after being faced of red line,
Faced with red line.
or faced with redlining, enslaved,
In slavery.
in slavery.
It's more like enslavement. Okay.
It's
a little rough. It's a little rough, but all right.
This is how I write, so I'm good with it.
And he got it to me at 150, Kim, so he did not benefit from the expert editing services of you know who.
I'm sorry. After facing slavery in redlining and many forms of torture, is it really wrong for us to turn our back? Do we owe America anything? Do we owe America our patriotism when America doesn't have time for us in times of peace?
Oh.
Is it really our responsibility to be there in times of war if America can't be there for us in times of peace as a people? If we're second-class citizens, how can we be so concerned with the feelings of banding together?
And I see you say here when we can't even get reparations.
Right. We can't get reparations for ourselves. At first, the government has to acknowledge that they've wronged us as a people before they have to acknowledge that they did wrong, and they're not ready to acknowledge that they've done wrong. So how can we feel patriotism for a country that has not acknowledged that they've done anything wrong?
All right, may I respond for that?
Sure.
To that? My first reaction, I think, is that there is a difference between having a humane response and responding out of patriotism. You know, and I mean, I completely understand why Coates felt disconnected from the events of 9/11. I had my own kind of disconnect going on. But at the same time, I'm trying to always keep myself conscious of the capacity of all of these events, of all of the events that black people have endured, of the capacity of all of that to actually rob us of our humanity. You know, Coates talks a lot about the destruction of the body, but an equal concern for me is the destruction of our humanity. And so how we respond to events, to me, is evidence of how much health, how much mental health we've been able to retain in a situation really designed to drive you insane. And, you know, he talks later in the chapter about, you know, the one gift that he does have to give his son is the gift of struggle, because the struggle to understand is what helps you keep your sanity while the world around you is often some dream state, often some delusional state, you know, disconnected from reality. So I would say that the people who died on 911 deserved our compassion. The families and friends who lost people on 911 deserved our compassion. But I also felt then, and I still feel now, that the people who committed that attack also deserve our compassion. See, because what America does is, and it's what Coates is talking about in this book, they totally dismiss the motive, and they totally dismiss the pain that they inflict on people, and then they want to play shocked and surprised when people retaliate. And so if we can't, you know, reach a point where we can be honest about those kind of things, then we're going to always have people that want to attack us, and we're never going to have a sense of safety in the world.
Right.
So,
but I was just thinking about that question, and I feel the way Michelle does. There's a thing called humanity, and a lot of folks haven't taken into account the reason why folks feel the way they feel about our country, the reason why we're hated as a country. We know as being black folk.
Oh, we know.
Is not the only, we are not the only folk that this country affects.
Right.
And have affected. And
we go into war with everyone.
Right. So, you know, there's a reason for everything. Folks just don't do anything just because they have nothing to do with their time. Believe it or not, whether good or bad, there's a reason for it.
There is.
I do feel for the innocent people that lost their lives
right
in this country.
I kind of feel like Coach does a little bit about not necessarily knowing how to feel about the police officers and the firefighters and the first responders.
Well,
these people are heroes. Don't get me wrong, but it's hard to feel. But it's kind of hard to feel for people who could take your body from you.
But is that fair, though? Is that fair to say, Dean, that everyone wants to take your body?
No.
Every white person wants, and now let's bear in mind too that a lot of black folks have white parents, are married to white people.
Right.
That's right. So you know, in all good conscience, I could never say that I had a problem feeling for the firemen that fought to save people's lives, as if everybody there was is evil. Everyone there may want to take my body. That's simply not true for me. That's not my truth. So I could never feel that way. You know, I go home that hatred in my heart, and I don't struggle with those kind of things. I actually don't struggle with them.
And remember how Coates said in the prior chapter how the boot on your neck is just as likely to make you delusional as it is to ennoble.
That's right. So I could not very well say that, like Coates, at that point, I'm struggling with that. I am not struggling with that at all.
He was maybe feeling for a broken system. That how can he feel for these people when the system would easily send him out to do its bidding against him? He's not. I don't think he's necessarily having a problem with the individual people. He's having a system. He's having a problem with the institutions, where the people are, where the people, when they're not struggling to protect themselves against war, could be turned against him and his communities. I think he's got a problem with the institution of cops, not the individuals who are in the situation. I think he's got more of a problem with the institution of cops, that when they're not facing wars and other struggles that they're trying to turn into patriotism for all, that these people could easily be called into our neighborhoods to come after us.
Well,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
He may not have it. He may not have a problem with these. He couldn't possibly have known all the first responders and police officers and firefighters that personally stepped in there. These people are heroes. But he's saying that they can easily be turned against them.
Yeah, I realize that no one actually would know everyone that's there. I'm just saying I don't feel that kind of
personal struggle,
hatred, resentment in my heart. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I don't feel that way.
That's good.
And yet I have dealt with everything that he has dealt with. Actually, I've been here a little longer than him, so I've probably seen a lot more than he has. You understand what I'm saying? Or, yeah, I'm sure. Or actually, I say I've seen what he's seen, at the least. So, I don't know. I mean, you know, there were wars going on in my neighborhood, so I didn't have to wait for the police to shoot me down. I could have been shot down walking out my door. Right. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have to wait for the police to plunder my body. I could have had that done in school, on the way to school, on the way home from school. You know. So, you know. I don't know.
I can understand the point of what he's trying to say here. You know, I can understand, how can you feel patriotism for a country that's sticking you in ghettos? How can you feel patriotism for a country that's built over, that has built malls over its shopping blocks and selling blocks, where it used to sell you for whatever rate it felt was appropriate to pick cotton on somebody's farm, or to be a houseboy, or for whatever reason, and not teach us the things that we need to know to be at least equal to America. And today we still don't have fair treatment. We still can't vote as a regular law. You know, every time we want to be equal or at least respected as a people, we get kicked in the teeth for it. Or people make us feel like racism doesn't exist. They get on TV and they try to say racism doesn't exist. They're very blunt with it sometimes. Or people want to tell us that they're not racist. Well, you shouldn't have to tell me that you're not racist. What does that say specifically? That's a statement on itself. How can we feel patriotism for a country where people have to tell us they're not racist? How can we feel, and how can we truly defend a country that is a global bully to the rest of the world? For whatever reason it feels is necessary to invade another country. We have been at war with Iraq and Afghanistan for the better part of 15 years now, for reasons that are not completely the fault of other countries, Iraq or Afghanistan. Not completely. They may bear some responsibility in it, but America fails to acknowledge its role in all world conflicts. So how, and then they feed that narrative to the people, and then pack us into armies designed to defend the honor of an America that is not maybe worthy of that, honorable, or acknowledging its role in world conflicts. People don't just fly planes into your country and you did nothing.
Yeah. Well, there was a person by the name of Muhammad Ali, aka Cassius Clay.
Yeah.
That I remember distinctively saying that no, I'm not going to war.
Right.
I don't know if I've heard anybody since him say that.
Me neither.
I have a problem with folks having all these convictions in their heart about not being patriotic. But I don't remember, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I missed a few things. I mean, that was actually very public. Hearing anybody since say, I am not going. I will take the jail time. This is how I feel. You can strip me of my, I think they stripped him of his championship. They stripped him of everything and put him in jail. I haven't heard any black folks say, you know anybody?
No, no. As a matter of fact, I don't.
All right.
Well, if there was anybody, I'm pretty
I'm
sure
sure
they
they've
would
been
not have
silent.
gotten media time.
It
Or they've been
probably got
silenced.
media time. However, I know for sure that unless it was in a mass of people that were doing it,
Mm-hmm.
which I doubt it,
Mm-hmm.
then you're right. It wouldn't have got media time.
Right. I don't
Okay.
know how he
Well,
wouldn't have
not
gotten
even
media
if there was
time.
a mass. I mean, there were however many million men marching down
Right.
in D.C. a few days ago, and that barely got a mention on the
No, it
media.
didn't.
Which is why we have to tell our people who have uh who have the means that they need to cover this stuff.
Well,
Nobody's willing to cover the things that they think will not be favorable to them or their careers. Nobody will take the risk. Nobody will take the risk to support their community, which goes back to cowardice.
Well, there was some coverage, and there's certainly the black press, and when you were young, Dean, you probably don't remember, but I used to do a lot of writing for the black press.
Mm-hmm.
And so I relate to the experiences that Coates was having with that in his early career. But the black press does not get the kind of exposure that mass media gets. And, and a part of the problem is that black people don't support black media or independent media, in the way that we should. And so, one of my friends, Janice Graham, does this uh, radio program on the web on Saturday nights called Our Common Ground with Janice Graham. And one of the things that she's frequently talking about is how black people are not supporting independent media the way that we should. So, we can either complain about not having access to news that affects us in the mass media, or we can show that we value those sources that are already out there that have been trying to show us where we should be focusing our attention. Personally, I hate watching the mass media news because,
Right.
you get a couple of quick 30-second blurbs about what's happening in the world, and those get repeated over and over again. And then there's all this other madness going on, this fluff, and I can't, so